I couldn't believe what I was seeing. My car crushed under a bulldozer in broad daylight. At first, I thought it had to be some kind of mistake. But the guys standing around wearing reflective vests and smug expressions weren't apologizing. No, they were acting like they had every right to be there. One of them even waved a clipboard around like it meant something. According to them, I had violated HOA landscaping codes even though there was no HOA, not a real one. Anyway, this all started when a strange group calling themselves the Community Standards Patrol began putting flyers on people's doors in our quiet little neighborhood. At first, we laughed it off, just some overzealous locals trying to play boss. But then, the citations started piling up. Petty stuff. Grass too long. Wrong kind of mailbox. A car parked too long. Still, nobody thought they'd actually do anything until they brought in heavy machinery. I had just returned from a short deployment, still shaking off jet lag, when I walked outside and saw the bulldozer. My truck, clearly marked with military plates and decals, was flattened like a soda can. That wasn't enforcement. That was destruction. And these weren't officials. They were just people pretending to be. No legal authority. No right to touch anything on my property. But they messed with the wrong car. And definitely the wrong guy. One of the workers turned pale when he noticed the plates. His clipboard dropped. Suddenly, everyone got real quiet. No more bravado. No more barking orders. Just silence, like they realized they'd just made a huge mistake. But that was just the beginning. Because once I started digging into who they really were and what they were hiding, things went from bad to insane. After that moment of stunned silence, the so-called enforcers quickly packed up and disappeared. No apology, no explanation, just gone. I stood there staring at what was left of my truck, still trying to process it. It wasn't just any vehicle. It was one I'd poured years into, both financially and emotionally. It had been with me through deployments, training, family road trips, and now it was scrap metal in my own driveway. The weirdest part, when I tried calling the city, they had no record of any demolition orders, no permits, nothing on file. That's when it really sank in. These people weren't just some overzealous HOA board. They were imposters. A fake HOA operating in plain sight, pushing around neighbors like they had real power. And nobody was stopping them. I started asking around, knocking on doors, talking to neighbors. Turns out I wasn't the only one who'd been targeted. One elderly couple had been fined for non-compliant shutters. Another family had their backyard playground dismantled because it violated noise rules. None of it was legal, but they'd been too scared or confused to fight back. Some even thought the group was the real HOA. I found out they even had a fake website, logos, and an answering service with hold music and everything. It was all a front, just polished enough to seem real, but with no legal foundation behind. The deeper I looked, the stranger it got. Some of the people behind this weren't even residents. One had a background in private security. Another was tied to a shady construction company. It was starting to look like this was more than just a neighborhood power trip. This was organized, planned, and my crushed car. It was probably meant as a warning. But if that was their goal, they seriously underestimated who they were messing with. As I kept digging, I realized how deep this fake HOA operation really went. These people weren't just bluffing with a few fake fines and bold attitudes, they were running a full-on scam. They had created fake legal documents, forged compliance notices, and even installed fake security cameras on power poles around the neighborhood. Most folks didn't even question it. I mean, who would think to challenge something that looked official? One of the most surprising discoveries came from Carol, a retired school teacher who'd lived here for over 20 years. She showed me a letter they sent her threatening legal action if she didn't repaint her garage door. It looked real watermarks, city logos, signatures. But the signature belonged to a made-up name, and the city compliance officer listed didn't even exist. That's when I realized they'd done their homework. They knew just how much authority to fake to keep people too afraid or too confused to push back. Meanwhile, I started noticing a black SUV parked down the street from my house almost every evening. Same time, same spot. Tinted windows. Never moved for hours. When I walked toward it one night, it took off before I got close. Coincidence? I didn't think so. Someone was watching. Maybe they thought I'd back off if they made me nervous. But honestly, it just pushed me harder. Then came the tip from someone anonymous, a note taped to my door with no name. Just a warning. They're not just after property. They want control. It sounded dramatic, sure. But after everything I'd seen, it wasn't hard to believe. There was more going on here than just property codes and fake fines. This was about power. And now that I was exposing them, I was a threat. I started compiling everything: photos, letters, fake citations, neighbor statements. But the more I gathered, the more paranoid things felt. People started acting distant. I even caught someone trying to look through my backyard at night. Something big was coming, and I could feel it. Things escalated fast after that. The neighborhood, once quiet and friendly, started to feel like a pressure cooker. Neighbors who used to wave stopped, making eye contact. Some whispered that I was causing trouble, stirring up drama. Others quietly slipped me their stories, fines, threats, even unmarked vans showing up after they complained. It was clear this fake HOA had people scared. And now they were trying to turn the neighborhood against me. I installed cameras around my property, and that same black SUV showed up again. But this time, it wasn't alone. Another truck parked nearby, and two men got out, checking something on their phones. I watched from the upstairs window as one of them walked straight up to my mailbox, opened it, and stuffed in a large envelope. No logo, no return address, just a plain manila folder. When I opened it, my blood ran cold. Inside were photos of me, my house, my family, all taken from a distance. Some were from weeks ago. This wasn't just about enforcing fake rules anymore. This was personal. I called the non-emergency police line, but without a name or business license to report. They said there wasn't much they could do. They advised me to stay alert and contact a lawyer. That was it. No help, no protection. Just a warning to be careful. Then came the letter that changed everything. A fake final notice taped to my door, claiming I had 48 hours to vacate for ongoing non-compliance. It was absurd, but someone had signed it in the name of the county inspector. Problem was, that inspector had passed away 2 years ago. They were getting sloppy, or maybe desperate. Either way, it meant one thing: they were planning something big. I wasn't just fighting for my own home anymore. I was standing between a neighborhood and a group of people who thought they could rewrite the rules. And with the clock ticking on that fake eviction, I knew the next 48 hours would either break this open or bring everything crashing down. The morning after that 48-hour notice, I was already sleep-deprived and on edge. But what happened next flipped everything I thought I knew. I got a call from someone claiming to be a county official. They said they'd received a formal complaint against me for impersonating a government employee. Me. That's right. These fake HOA people had filed a report trying to paint me as the fraud. I drove straight to the county office to clear things up. The clerk there was polite but confused. She pulled up my file and showed me something that didn't make sense: a document with my name and signature on it, apparently giving the fake HOA full permission to enforce rules on my property. Only problem, I'd never signed it, never even seen it. My signature had been forged. That's when it hit me. They weren't just using intimidation anymore. They were planting fake documents to flip the story and make me look like the criminal. I demanded a copy, and the clerk hesitated. "You're not the first one," she said under her breath. "We've had a few complaints like this lately." That one sentence changed everything. This wasn't just limited to my neighborhood. These people had spread out, possibly into other communities. What looked like a local scam might have been part of something bigger: organized property control. Maybe even tied to real estate flipping or forced buyouts. And just when I thought I had a grasp on what I was up against, another twist dropped. My security footage, every single file was gone. Not corrupted. Deleted. The hard drive had been wiped clean overnight. No sign of forced entry, but the backup system had been tampered with too. That meant one of two things. Either someone had tech skills way above average, or someone had access from the inside. Whatever this was, it had reached a level I never expected. My truck being crushed was just the opening shot. Now they were rewriting the rules, framing me, and erasing any proof I had. And if they were willing to go this far, I had to ask myself, how much worse could this get? I knew I couldn't wait around any longer. The fake HOA had gone from harassment to full-blown criminal behavior. And with my footage wiped and forged documents showing up at the county office, it was time to bring in backup. I contacted a buddy of mine, a retired military investigator who owed me a favor. I handed him everything I had: copies of letters, names, photos, even that anonymous warning note. Within a few days, he uncovered something I hadn't expected. The leader of this fake HOA scam wasn't some random neighborhood bully. It was actually a former real estate developer who'd lost his license years ago after being sued for fraud. He'd moved from state to state, starting property enforcement groups that pretended to be legitimate HOAs, bullying residents into selling cheap or complying with fake codes. Then he'd flip the properties or sell enforcement rights to shady investors. Our quiet neighborhood was just his latest stop. We reported everything: signed statements from neighbors, forged documents, and the name of the man behind it, all to the state attorney general's office. It didn't take long. They launched an investigation, and one morning, unmarked vehicles showed up. Not for me, but for them. Several of the fake HOA members were arrested on charges ranging from fraud to impersonating government officials. The Bulldozer operator. Turns out he was duped too, hired under false permits. With the operation exposed, the neighborhood breathed a collective sigh of relief. People who had been too afraid to speak up finally came forward. The truth had come out, and the nightmare was over, or so I thought. A week later, as I was clearing out some old paperwork, I found something wedged behind a drawer in the envelope that held that fake eviction notice. A second note, different handwriting. He wasn't working alone, it said. No signature, no return address. Just those 5 words. And just like that, I realized this might have been a win. But the game wasn't over. Not yet. That second note sat with me for days. I kept replaying everything in my head: the forged documents, the missing footage, the mysterious SUV, the man posing as an HOA leader. It all pointed to something bigger. But for now, the immediate threat was gone. The arrests had shut down their fake HOA operation in our neighborhood, and most of the damage was being addressed. My neighbors, once afraid to even speak up, were finally talking openly, sharing their stories, and helping each other rebuild. The city stepped in and confirmed there was never a registered HOA here. And new protections were put in place to prevent this kind of scam from happening again. The insurance company finally approved my claim for the crushed truck once I sent them the investigators' findings. I still missed that vehicle, but replacing it was easier than rebuilding trust in my own community. What helped, though, was seeing people come together. We formed a real neighborhood group, not a homeowners association, but a simple team of residents, making sure nothing like this ever happens again, I never found out who left the second note or if there really was someone else pulling strings behind the scenes. Maybe that's a story for another time. But if there's one thing I took away from all of this, it's that not every uniform, clipboard, or letter on your door is as official as it looks. Always ask questions. Trust your gut, and don't let fear keep you quiet when something feels wrong. That this fake HOA thought they could control people through fear and confusion. But in the end, the truth won out and they froze the moment they realized they messed with the wrong person, especially one with military plates and a whole lot of patience to fight back.